One thing, one thing our nations share. One thing our one nation think. One thing our nations share is the linguistic extortion of all modern leaders. Since before modern nations were founding, we must understand what made this linguistic extortion method common to our nations, not sourced by one, and how. Then Chen Mao, and then switch to James to know of revolution. We must understand the extortion of the nature of our leaders, forced to original, shared, interscience only made roles with natures of organized crime. For example, with roles with just worse than just things like slavery, internation, intercultural, a minority of police stole the nature of internation science and of the campus Marcius name and process, legions, religion, inherent to religion is this cause. Play New York game. It gathers folks. We're going to have a movie about that. We're going to have a game that makes all kinds of value that it owns, because we're going to bring value, nature, and system. This is what Native Dreams want to understand. To understand this, we have to understand the nature of methods to the captive laws of everyone that no one figured out means to explain, not by accident. And I'm not saying that I'm smarter than everybody. I'm saying I use my whole life to point of watching reactions to core points of correlation in relationship to summary convictions only realized with lies and delusions in relationship to predatory actual obfuscations of what actually is actively exploiting our poverty, the war on poverty, why we lost it. For example, there are proofs of it. So, but the only way, and it's not by accident, there's too much hurt involved for anyone to speak free speech in relationship to how everyone is a reaction nature in relationship to logic, linguistically, to facts treatments. And this is in relationship to where the leaders of modern nations were forced in relationship to terrors that they have to defend logic in relationship to. In other words, defend morality in relationship to. Per a different standard, because no one is allowed to use ratiocination. In other words, this is why just common sense didn't reveal the logic to explain the methods of organized crime behind colonization's terror acts and laws and methods and sources of them. Instead, blamed on kings and queens, as well extorted. No one had the words to explain the natures of the multi-front positions upon them linguistically. For example, Native Americans don't want things that are prejudicial against them, but they also don't want narratives that are pretending things to be prejudicial against them from stopping everyone from being able to speak for them. In other words, in relationship to the only realized predatory artistic positions in relationship to them with movies. This is with only realized incomplete legal nature opinions breached at that and how with everyone as us. So we understand what stays live progressions, maintenance methods, intercity, intercommunity, interstate, internation, and international, and how, with interests invested to what it doesn't even understand. In other words, the top-down extortion of our leaders known, all the proofs of it in correlation. There are also proofs, not just of lies and delusions only realized to explain it. Instead, justifying that with sensibilities needed to justify that logic. In other words, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a police foreman, I'm not a criminal, but that's criminal insidiousness in relationship to natures of organized crime that religions are about, influences of it. Now, to understand what causes that, we have to understand the criminal enterprise, how it causes criminal insidiousness nature, and how it causes, things like wrongdoers and crimes like predicate acts, and all this being the cause too, and with other negative value nature progressions and demonstration of it. But the criminal insidiousness being the needs and motivations to hide the extent and all that really tied to it. And there are methods that, with the extortion of our multi-front, in other words, with linguistic treatments of the law and of morality in relationship to standards. For example, using points of correlation instead of summary convictions only used as facts. In other words, this being methods to the forcing free speech as a captive all tool, evidence fabrication nature, forced offensive roles of our leaders to the maintenance of bodies of value needed to defend themselves, to defend us, but only let incomplete defense. And because everyone only let to be realized as ours, linguistic nature and religion facts treatment nature. So at the same time, with our legal, if our leaders try to speak into issues, these issues are already invested by value nature systems, already invested, needing these trains of logic defended in relationship to business. In other words, the Constitution, must understand, for example, using correlation, there are proofs that are undeniable that the Constitution can't be defended as a business. You can't defend free speech like that. Only through forced terror negotiations, glorifications of titles in relationships. So this is where people want to go after our leaders, and our leaders are in relationship to methods to the maintenance of what actually stays crime progressions to all areas. In other words, with every industry and with the investments and with the nature of everyone, because in relationship to how each nation shares this too. We're all. In other words, when they have these conversations in these internation court arguments and guises with the nature of business, with all these points of correlation actively denied for just indifference, saying that's the way things are. Every nation, the UN needs to focus on that before they focus on Native American rights. And I apologize for even saying that they should at least put the pipe way better built than that in case it breaks. In other words, have a method that will contain that and then more than that. In other words, but then that would still block the nature of the relationship between the bottom up nature and the Native American humanity natively. Naturally, without criminal influence, especially criminally legalized persuasions. So we must understand. So in other words, here's one movie that's never been done. In other words, I've already pulled Excalibur from the Rock. See it in my other video. We would make a movie about the history of English, the way it was really revealed. In other words, we're going to take counter positions to points of correlation that are lies, are with lies and delusions. And we're going to do it actively so we can defend, we can force the defense of the positions, the lies being lied about and being blamed on top-down summary lies and convictions, tricked to the victims of it, which are everybody. The whole entire value nature system of this species is affected by an organized crime. This is what method, an archetypal organized crime, an international one, not sourced by one, but through all, and through what it's sourced and what it entrenched, invested this way, through the nature of humanity, and through our facts treatments in relationship to a linguistic trick all nations fell to as odds, everyone. So we must understand the extortion, not only of our leaders and of all, especially the most economically and system exploited, actively. The points of this ignore in relationship to dictates with business, in relationship to this, in relationship to morality, defending invested positions, with morality in relationship to agreements made, in relationship to working, in relationship to natures of business never free since founding. They didn't even explain the Civil War, right? Because all nations are incapable of describing the nature of their relationships forced together. Two ways, but one way denied. There's one reason we're a species, to correlate the identity we share as a positive identity, that it's only progressive, and when not, we are an identity that is furthering negative value nature, and as energy, more than energy, as a substance, being the negative value nature, not wanted by our own inherent nature of nature inherent to consciousness. Nobody could look at any cities and say that these are normal human standards. These are acceptable human standards, not knowing how they put they put all the waters underground, the fresh water, not realizing we have, how denatured the nature. Even Native Americans don't remember how denatured it is. The Mashantucket Pequot Native Tribal Museum is the first Native American museum in the country. They remember they have so many memory of all the damages done to their waters and lands, and burn and soils, and memories and understanding and education. Everyone was taken to retreat natures. It is impossible to imagine Native Americans existing through New England winters for years not underground. There are proofs that they were forced to terror negotiations too with this business positions. In other words, with relationships of which way worse than prejudice. In other words, and would say so. Staying so, even so insidiously, needing only let realize prejudice being with narratives of impressions directed the same way our nations are directed against each other, manipulated like marionette puppets, without them understanding means to communicate this in free speech, real facts treatments of morality. So in other words, we reveal how the ancients revealed A through Z, and the difference between negative and positive value nature. Positive value nature is only that three ways. As a polarity nature, as a correlation. Polarity nature is for correlation. Everything is for correlation of the shared positive identity. This is what religions are saying that criminal, the ancients, al-Jahiliyyah, the internation science, humanity, human education was criminally re-engineered, ancient revelations, and facts treatments in relationship to that. This denying what actively demonstrates to us the answers of what to do next. That's why, too, this New York game works bottom up. In other words, the most exploited people of our cities. And then we have other cities that have characters in a cartoon, and they're going to fight. We're going to fight the only way that hurts not one. In other words, but these characters, these cartoon characters for each city, they're going to work with a game that works with the world because we all share the positive identity. Only inherent to temporary value nature is the one that is actively coming through temporary value nature as a progressive value to itself. In one nature, in forever nature. The value of forever's nature is a progressive value because there's more values being amounted to what it is. No, so what it is, we're going to use science, value A. This is where value A was the capital value A. Because there's no obstructions to perfect value nature progressions. There's no criminal persuasions of it yet. There's not even matter. This is how we're going to deal with when I'm finished reading the Old Testament. And this is in relationship to the beginning of the Quran. Because everyone's not focusing on the Quran. They're putting scholarship as facts and not the proper sequence, nature, and conversation of the Quran, which is with implied methods of revealing how everyone is Oz in relationship to linguistic treatments of facts and of morality, in relationship to how our nations were forced to share criminal force, shared policing of forced shared market commodity landscapes, all and all that with that invested in that. So we have to turn the value nature system back to the only one that is actively in demonstration to us. And so, in other words, it's not against one company. That won't work. You know what I mean? What we have to do if we want to care about actual law, actual positive all ways with the native rights and their denatured landscape, and actual impositions, which are multi-front, needing to defend natures of logic, thinking with only realizing complete legal natures of opinions. For example, with all the ways that illusions are exploited in relationship to prejudice. For example, when I start talking about simple truths about slavery, like points of correlation in relationship to in witch trials and other terror laws in relationship to the methods, in relationship to the narratives with American history, summary convictions glorified that are not taking into account the terror forced on our founders that they wanted us to explain and how. So this is how we can use points of correlation to understand. But see, then we can see also we must understand. This is what I study. How it actively is insidiously affected, avoided when someone tries to protract ratiocination in relationship to how American history glorifies and it makes summary convictions with lies and delusions that are attached to modern logic, still perpetuating human value nature systems and standards that are the cause of negative value nature progressions being invested and exploited. This is how colonization had evil that was mass evil with things like slavery. In other words, in the South and in the North. In other words, with this game too, we have a bunch of movies, not just about the evolution of the letters. For example, capital value T is only negative value nature as time. Inherent to time, the bottom of it, like it, like the two value L's and value L's, is visible, like in relationship to the space nature above and below the line connecting the capital value A. Even the space nature is being used to teach about correlation with English. All parts of English, even the finite parts, share one positive identity, the language, and proper formation of the words, and explanations of nature, which is there is one that is unchanging, which is positive. This is there is one positive nature, and all that is not that is long away from it as negative value nature. But we must understand not only this in the moment, but this prior, and how this is with the moment, and how this is invested in the moment, and what stayed with that. With methods left unrealized because of the nature of extortion left multi-front and not just in linguistically. This is a linguistic method. That's one thing all modern nations share terror relationships to, is in relationship to criminal re-engineering of ancient internation science. They all share lies enforced for their own self-defense and for the self-defense of their people, but in relationship to what's multi-front, that's off the records, that no one's treatments of facts and of morality is let outside of the nature necessary to treat with honesty and with ratiocination, and in relationship to invested positions and business negotiations that keep everyone else invested to multi-front needs, to tell the same lies and obfuscate all the realities connected to them to all areas, even the worst crimes and crime patterns through time. And right where our FBIs have been, like in Chicago, like in New Haven, in relationship to Hartford, and in relationship to natures of the corruption of them, and relate with other nations, families, and police forms here, invested here, and with geopolitical campus natures of business invested here on one level, and one they're not talking about because of their training and stuff like that for them. But this is and this is used per methods everyone miss for evidence fabrication methods, exploiting the same innocence of every age group, methodically unrealized. All concept think is kept. All sides are contained by. See, when I first started talking about these terror laws of colonization, you want to get hard because it's a terror method that is in relationship to thoughts that need to be had, to voice that is need to be said, distinction, ratiocination. Otherwise, one just has to defend guys' positions in relationship to the defense of type glorification. And that's all together a whole bunch of different types of people and interests. They're the only ones that force the sensibilities of human sociology and human interaction. Criminally influenced originally and actively in relationship to what criminally re-engineered human education before And with the legalization of it, per terror, forced every nation in relationship to too many countries forced together at once. So it becomes a time imposition with treatments of logic. And this is with geopolitical and again, vested positions for people to defend indifferences to the sabotage of nature. This is we are perpetuating as a negative value nature ill of the entire earth. We are its value transferring because so. In other words, the native dreams are the dreams of where we all share the same identity, every single nation. We have to connect our people to reveal the correlation, how it's being denied by everyone in ways it doesn't want, but simultaneously different ways. This is what we need forgiveness for. We have to admit how we are broken and why. In other words, we can't have types. Only let voice, and in relationship to recorded proofs of systemic police involvements with software, not connected to streets, natures of crime and acts, and to natures of it that are interstate with the natures of the policing of the internet. In relationship to, for example, to natures of organized crime with this, in other words, with colonization, that we weren't let to use words like criminal enterprise, and like it's caused criminal insidiousness, and like it's caused wrongdoers, and like it's caused predicate acts. We weren't let to use these words to reveal points of correlation and criminal insidiousness with narratives, only let standardized to American history, summary convictions, and in relationship to social judgment and how, and in relationship to narratives with modern internation, organized crime groups, with known and further demonstrable natures of juxtapositions of internation criminal enterprise groups with our areas and intercampus with intercampus roles, the policing of that in relationship, for example, to treatments of facts and of morality. No, already with roles without, for the nature of the of left agreements about the business of doing education too, still breached and never explained. In other words, it was more than the South. It was shared. It was shared peace agreements, but that weren't peace. There were terror with insidious terror, legal nature, agencies agreements between nations, with America's founding already entrenched here, not just England. And this was what England was extorted by too, because it's only let for the sciences, and everyone only let with lies and delusions in relation to the concept of science and of concept containment, which is why we have to make a New York game that works for our species, and it works for our country too, because we're going to show other, we're going to set up other, we're going to give other countries ideas that they could, that that no one made but value itself. In other words, they'll own it, and we have to make a way to make the earth heal. In other words, bottom up. In other words, and all else is not real positive value nature. All else is not perfect. There's only one unchanging value, and it's in demonstration actively of itself, coming through temporary value nature. Each share this same positive identity with it in demonstration of this all the ways, but for multi-front natures of logic and of facts treatments per science roles with human nature, not by accident, and per methods to the exploitation of this to all areas invested in. Invested in people needing to defend natures of logic and of evidence fabrications, standardizations, rolls with that, per invested interest to do such because of us being on a criminally re-engineered value nature system, each nation sharing this, what we lost to in the American Revolution. Again, per points of proof and correlation. For example, when they don't explain the nature of organized crime and they blame it on human nature. It was a nature of human nature that was forced by terror. In other words, not just the slaves were slaves. The colonizations were intellectual slaves. They were made beasts by criminal internation science, terror database relationships, and terror laws against everyone. And everyone says that's just how it is. And everyone just says that's how it is because the police of other nations too, they have terrors upon their lands and upon them that they can't explain too, because there's no time for it, and everyone's a hurt conviction nature in relationship to everyone being invested not by accident, needing to cover up live progressions through time. What maintains this to all areas? Understand when we have little kids, when you're a little kid. If you have little kids, a lot of people, we're alive. We all know little kids. They don't know anything. You know what I'm saying? They don't know. It's not that they don't know business. They don't know what business stays. Captive terror rolls with. That's what the problem is with the shooting problems. With guns is a physical delusion. Especially when it's to hurt the hurt. You know what I mean? If someone's with a gun, and with these levels, and no one having explained, they just say, "Oh, well, you have to be trained on gun safety." No one trained. These trainings then become self-defense natures of incomplete moral, linguistical convictions and of context convictions. These are contexts in relationship to gun laws that aren't. It's not that they should be fair. If you start judging things in relationship to fair, then it's slowly a physical reaction nature. In other words, honest is what we need. We don't have honest. And it's not by accident that it's exploited. And how? So we need to understand a method. This is what we're going to do. We make in other words, increasing value. And this is a cartoon. And then this connects with the value nature system reversal game. And it's a cartoon. But it's connected with databases. In other words, each person goes into campus. We train to be one legion, religion, train. I'll guide, and I'll just keep stacking the values. And what will own it will not be me. So we'll figure out. We need Harvard. Will be the chalkboard of this, for parts of this, for example, with New York. And we'll have people come in Wethersfield. And I'm sure other cities will want to get involved. You know what I'm saying? And we're going to admit human standards breached. And how? We're going to admit linguistics and facts treatments to the ability to ratiocination, using points of correlation, force, and using methods to force to force reactions to points that we know we can defend. In other words, with linguistics, like in other words, we know that it was terror laws, and there was criminal insidiousness in relationship to the narratives, actively with the pilgrims, and with relationship to all the things connected to terror laws still that are with negative value nature progressions today, and not by accident. So, but we're going to do this in relationship to a nature invested to needs to attack us, and to methods to do this by having natures of logic that have invested themselves needing to self-defend, justifications of social interactions, and of treatments of facts, and of obfuscations of their roles with standardized lies, and methods of getting away with it. And how? You know, we are, in other words, by criminally re-engineering ancient education and ancient actual intonation science. In other words, we're going to learn a story in the beginning. Humanity didn't have war because it had criminal persuasions contained. It had the phenomenon of internation organized crime understood. It had the nature of what a predicate act is understood, a relationship to a temporary lasting negative value nature progression. This is per religion, per proofs through correlation, which demonstrate decipher, which demonstrate cipher needed to counter what is multi-front linguistic method attached to and as the odds of nations, attached to the defensive roles with that, per the nature of logic forced bottom up and top down in relationship to all invested like that. In the actual police connections to a nature like this since before founding terror negotiations, for example, them consciously knowing that our legal natures were only realized as geopolitical education trained realized to the defense of logic that was with breaching roles. In other words, hiding, obfuscating the proofs of correlation of our nation's, our founders' original forced terror negotiations. See Marbury versus Madison. I'm not a lawyer. And this is what we do. Bottom up, see value W. See with no criminal persuasions. The capital W. Inherent to it is capital A. And they have the shared identity because it's beyond us. It's a nature. It's its own nature, regardless of the person, because the position's actively evolving. And what the ancients knew demonstrably with English, this is why we learn obfuscated English and justifications of people saying, oh, it's an incomplete language. You know, I mean, the rules, because they're not teaching how it's a nature, it's a correlation nature. It's a nature correlation system to and by nature, inherent to nature. And we'll examine this. All parts of English are revealed to reveal this. In other words, explaining a criminal enterprise. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a police form. I'm not a criminal. To explain a criminal enterprise and to explain the devil as an archetypal criminal enterprise, which is more logical and which is demonstrated by correlation, is what the Old Testament is about, and with multi-front methods to communicate this as well through Islam. Note that came after that and saved algebra and did damage control from all fronts on internation science, organized crime. Algebra, too, is not a math. You know, my degree is in English and communications, but Algebra is algebraic consciousness. This is what English was revealed to teach. This is probably what they called it, algebraic consciousness. Algebra is with the letters and with the numbers. And this is to teach about correlation, because correlation is of the invisible. When we speak, we're speaking about things that are invisible, but you understand what I'm speaking about, because we're using correlation between points that we know are unchanging what they are. And that's what is actively in demonstration to us always this way, because we're supposed to understand what's unchanging what it is. And it's not value nature system we're invested to. It's not the treatments of logic. They have types of investments and of natures that in relationship to their needs to justify treatments of the law in the area unfoldings that are with lies and with delusions unchecked as yet since founding, not by accident. So, with this conversation, we need to meet. We need to hand our nation's leaders means to have solutions for us at the same time. We need to do this with art, and with religion. Why? Because one thing for free speech, but see, what we have to understand about that is the nature of interscience roles with human convictions and with the other interests with human facts, treatments, and indifferences to hurt and to hurt nature only let realized and how for interests in relationship to natures of organized crime that require a conversation and treatments of facts that are forced only let defended ill prior to use of them with protracted truths and ratiocination. So everyone's truths, everyone's defense of their own nature, their own past logic, and their own standing logic, and their own investments is predatory to the actual truth. All kinds of different ways invested. Everyone's lying at the same time. This is why Native Americans speak with a hesitating voice. That's her. This is why everyone doesn't speak, but wrong. In other words, and that's why they're speaking, trying not to speak wrong at all. And all. So what they say, well, look, we say it shouldn't go through there at all, and we know that's right always. But what is also the only way? See, that's still not right always. Because it's not the shared, it's not also with language that explains how every nation is forced to a nature of business connected to this at the same time, differentially. See, that's when we get to fairness, and everyone say, okay, well, we have to do this is fair. But it's nothing fair. Nothing has been fair since founding. You see? So what we have to do is just admit the standards of human nations broke, America's the last, but we have to understand points of correlation that demonstrate only let realize summary delusions with facts treatments too, that saying that Native Americans were never here. There are proofs that even if they weren't here, there are needs for us to take a counter position and to rewrite. I mean, not to rewrite, to reveal the correlation nature of truth as American history, as the world's history, because every nation's history is the world's. The value is not per this only let realized breached value nature system, systems. They don't even have one market. You know what I'm saying? And this is treated with sensibilities in relationship to legal nature. Only let realized, compromised, incomplete legal nature opinions. So that's what I mean when I say we're going to use points like 1860. We're going to make 3 blocks. We're going to have a block. We're going to have a game. We're going to have a book. So we're all on the same page. We're going to standardize education. And we're going to do it not just with art, but we're going to 3 blocks. Why? Around 1800. We're still in the physical retreat nature, trying to counter the set down to gain leverage to fight for free speech yet. 1800, this is in 1776. It's basically 1800 to 1900 is 100 years. 1900 to 2000 is the second block. It's at 200 years. The third block is the year 2100. And then when we switch the blocks one notch back, we go to 1700. And we're going to learn about the narratives with the campuses in relationship to criminal insidiousness, where they were only wrongdoers too. The sciences, because that they still are. The people with the campuses, they don't want to be this evil. These are just human standards, and everyone relying upon expert opinions that have only let them be worse than just incomplete legal nature opinions. So America say breach. And how? I'll chant Mao. I'll then switch to James. We are one species. And all these sides never wanted war. There is no identity that is being fought for but the positive value nature system that is to eventually free the right to free ratiocination. What is that? That is the proper human nature as positive value, and that is its cause to its positive value nature progression's evolution. Humanity is in a state of de-evolution as a infection to the earth and to ourselves. False nations, false identities defended, forced by terror means, hazards, linguistic tricks. All sides, all opinion natures are forced to entertain political opinion, business. Constitution can't be defended as a business. For example, in relationship to the housing standards around the world that were set by colonization's methods and terror laws, linguistic tricks. But with that, not just to us, and with morality across the board of nations. How? It's not business, not money and greed. Before it is these things, and with this is these things, it's criminal insidiousness in relationship to uncharged natures of organized crime. And through a human education, and through what that connects with, which will only let legal nature stewardships revealed. Pathologically, in defense of the only let realized exploited needs to tell lies of our leaders. In other words, trying to justify business standards with bombs at its back is not morality. But what makes it, too, is the Oz that stays what is incapable of even letting us connect through this. We don't want these nations of war, these human value nature standards, and these tricks with linguistics and fake sides that aren't facts, forced to obfuscate free speech with these narratives with capitalism and with communism. Both sides, all sides. Each identity, false identity. We have to have the words to defend our losses in the American Revolution, lost human, actively exploited, invested to linguistically exploited in relationship, multi-front to what's actually actively behind these physical progressions with the gun problems, shooting problems, murder problems. Because we have an education that's speaking terror roles. It's insidiously defending them in relationship to exploitations of the only realized natures of business guises with politics, for example, to our areas, intercity, and with positions and titles. This is where everyone attacks each other and leaves logic captive laws, defending immorality and defending predatory guises with that in relationship to the Oz reactions in relationship to the negative value nature progressions caused by it, like with the gun problems and with the increase of school shootings. There are proofs that is tied to the ISIS narratives in relationship to the way they've maintained juxtapositions of known criminal enterprises to all areas, blamed on lies and on physical delusions, with the truths that are saying other. But with those lies and physical delusions methodically only let realized, exploited, not let addressed, measured. That and there are proofs that this was involved with the 9/11 attack. And with our media's roles, per science is only letting them train to defend sensibilities with treatments of logic, again, in relationship to fronts we lost to. We must understand Wethersfield as a nature with Hartford, between New York and Boston. Hartford is the capital of Connecticut. We must understand its roles with Native American. The Mashantucket Pequot Tribal Museum is the oldest Native American museum in this nation. And there are proofs that they have semi-memory of their waters and lands being denatured to force them into criminal markets position shared and not into the defense of memories of education that were incomplete, again forced to accept lies and delusions to justify their forsaken rights. And that's with proofs that there's no way that they could survive New England winters and tents, and that they originally were underground, and that these undergrounds, in other words, America formed 1860, 1865. That's only 65 years, like 1800, we're still physically in the physical. That's why we didn't even get to the Civil War yet. This was all to fight what? Not North and South. Is to fight internation terror positions here, terror database relationship positions, North and South together, multi-front, insidiously, and with evidence fabrication roles per methods that all nations were not let to understand, even the illegal nature stewards of it. That's how kings and queens couldn't even understand it, because human education only let one nature of internation police realized. And knowing everyone would blame insidiousness through this perpetually on physical delusions like money and like greed, which are not finite facts. Everybody forcing entertained logic and with finite, with bodies of value and top-down lies. So everyone perpetually stayed as evidence fabrication reaction natures in relationship to what only let our most sophisticated legal people realize this way, to roles in relationship to great evil, justifying it and blaming it on other. This is how they fail to address the natures of organized crime with slavery and the methods to make mass evil hurt conviction natures, and to blame it on other people, other white people who have nothing to do with it. This is why we have KKK people with the Nazi band on their arm. This is in relationship to evidence fabrication methods that all nations are kept odds in relationship to wars were invented to realize, to only let nations realized incapable of understanding what actually perpetuates criminal insidiousness agenda through our campuses, intercity and intercommunity and interstate and internation. The agenda for it is agenda in relationship to facts treatments that are invested, needed, justified. So if we change little things, we're already justifying standards that left people out, and that are with sick lies and delusions when they say about the reality of having a job or not, etc., etc. Facts treatments forsake everyone with multi-front roles what actually forsakes human value nature standards. So first we give it a business. This is our religion, and we'll make a Native American prayer bench. But before that, and with that, we have to make it real, and we have to keep. What is the prayer bench? For example, this is where we're going to give the. We have to understand it though to give it to them. We force ourselves to push until we change the human value nature system to be in that together. In other words, we can't blame one business for this stuff. We can't blame, we have to admit what broke the active value nature system, and bottom up, we have to keep it actively evolving. That means everyone evolves. Obviously, if you're bringing up the exploited areas, the areas that are better off next to it, you're bringing yourself up. You know what I'm saying? And what we're coordinating, forget about it. These are means that cannot be revealed by these incomplete legal natures, evidence fabrication natures across the board of nations. Hear this rise. Campus Marcius to you all now cries you. We train, religion, gain, we'll tribe. We rise through the streets. This cries 5 boroughs long. We rap. Why? See value I to rap each other. See it in the nature. That's extreme radical value A. Radical in consciousness, perception. Radical for correlation. Why? Why is it necessary for science to teach it? It's a radical. Because we're using correlation to see the truth, to speak for law, not lies, not delusions. That's why. Everyone forces passions to the conversation of colonization's terror laws with lies and with delusions. One game forced passions with the point that hurts not one. That fights for facts, treatments, the finite. Play this game. Religion, train. Whole tribe. Inherent to a religion is this cause. Campus Marcius long now calls through laws. We lost on many fronts in the American Revolution. Like other nations, all modern nations lost to a multi-front linguistic method. Multi-front as well, with terror branches, terror invested positions, only let realized in ways they did not understand. Low negative value nature progressions, low hurt evidence fabrication natures, murder natures. Upon these courts to understand them. I understand, we understand, but the cause of it is with them first and two. See value you. Know why? Z. See top of Z, force evolution here. See bottom of Z, force evolution there. Whoa. We want not that. Call God back. Why pray? I'll stand from bow. Chant bow and switch to James. We play no games, but one. There is one positive value nature that longs progress or parts. See high these odds.